My specialty became student housing and large multifamily. So working on projects all around the country, I think my smallest projects range between like 100 million to 500 million in construction.
Welcome to this episode of the Captain Curt Show. Think you have to be rich to invest in real estate? You don't. All right, welcome to this episode of the Captain Curt Show. I have some new friends, Josh and Deanna. We met 2 years ago on Instagram. She just reminded me, and we've talked a bunch, follow each other, support each other, and finally get to meet in person at my new office, and excited to share their story with you. So welcome on the show.
Thank you so much, Curt. We're so excited to be here.
So great to meet you and actually spend some time with you before the show to really connect. And that's what I like about this industry and what we're doing in real estate is most of us have other careers. Everybody we know, they have a job and you start doing real estate and your whole goal is to transition out of your job, you know, that you don't have to answer to somebody else and have a product or a real estate asset that can provide income and also have fun along the way. Absolutely.
And we always talk about it. Our favorite thing about real estate is the amount of people we have met that come from a different background that without real estate, we would have never crossed paths. We probably would have never met without real estate. So it's so awesome to just connect with different people that are doing awesome things.
Yeah, and it's such a different industry than my other industry is, you know, I fly private jets. That's its own industry and you meet a lot of interesting people, but you kind of can't necessarily comprehend how billionaires spend their money and buy jets. But in real estate, anyone can get started in real estate with literally no money or low money down like I did. And then it can expand into whatever you're capable of. Some people maybe just stop with flips and they love flipping. But for both of us, we expanded into bigger projects. But let's talk about, so both of you guys are architects. I know you kind of focus on different things, but let's ask Josh, so what do you focus on and how long have you been an architect, I guess?
So I'm still in my licensing process, but I'm training to become an architect still. There's several exams that you to get through. Anyway, I do a lot with sports venues, entertainment, hospitality facilities. I've focused a lot on billion-dollar projects in my experience between architecture, design, and construction management. I've worked on site in some of these really, really large scale venues that host like professional sporting events and collegiate sporting events as well, and then everything in between.
Yeah, it's very cool. I personally don't know like architects that are friends that have these conversations, but I mean, that is such a unique experience. And to me, it's an interesting job, right? I mean, especially if you're talking big collegiate events, or I know you said horse racing stadiums and things like that. Like most people you think architecture, it's, hey, building houses, right? Design houses or design buildings. So it sounds like you just have a different job than what most have heard of.
Yeah.
So
it's very niche. It was something that like when I graduated from school, I really wanted to get involved at a big scale. It's always excited me to be in the biggest projects and like doing the urban kind of something that impacts everybody or everybody gets to experience. Residential wasn't necessarily something I found that I would end up doing, but you know, I also, now we've gotten into doing some of that now as a different subset of what we're doing.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's right that you think about it, like so many people are going to see a collegiate stadium or a horse racing venue like you're talking about building and expanding from there. You're right. It impacts a lot of people or the urban development area of that area specifically. And what do you focus on specifically?
Yeah, same. We met in grad school, both doing our architecture masters in construction management. I took a different path than Josh. I was living in Seattle, and my focus, I was working for one of the best architecture firms in the nation, working in really high-end design, especially my specialty became student housing and large multifamily. So working on projects all around the country, I think my smallest projects range between like 100 million to 500 million in construction. So very large design projects. I was typically on the front end of the project, so working very hand in hand with the developers, with the clients, creating the concept idea of like how to bring this project to life, how many rooms, like in that part, like I always joke with Josh, I'm like, it's crazy. Like I love the game of like sitting down with the developer side by side, and like he would have his giant performance that I did not understand at the time, and it's like, how many rooms can we do? Well, how height of the building, and like what are the requirements, the zoning code, retail, what is the mix of rooms, like 2 bedrooms, 1 bedrooms, like I spent a ton of time doing that, doing those feasibility studies, and then taking the project through basically to the end of design. And then once the project started construction, someone else would take the project over and I would kind of start over with a new client. So that was like my background in the last 10 years before quitting my job.
And then, I mean, those are some big projects and really important projects for what this country needs right now, especially with student housing or affordable housing. They're starting to be really big projects, but it's definitely very interesting. And it's such a different, unique asset or skill set to bring into real estate. So when did you guys transition into doing some real estate on the side, I would assume, for yourselves?
Yep. This was 2020.
Okay.
COVID, I think, impacted everyone's lives of how we're doing things, how we are kind of like rethinking of like, why are we doing what we're doing? Architecture is an incredibly challenging profession, incredibly demanding. Typically, an easy week consists between like 60 hours a week, but that can range to like easily 100, 120 hours a week. Like we were, especially like both of us, incredibly dedicated to our jobs, going the extra mile, doing whatever it took. And we had spent years in that mode of just grinding for someone else. And honestly, like, I loved it, and like Josh like loves what he does as well. So it was a hard thing eventually to like walk away from. But at the time we were living in Seattle, and I think COVID just put things into perspective of like, what are we doing? I started getting very curious about financing and financials and learning more about that aspect. I started reading it. I'm an avid reader, started educating myself on it, and then eventually found real estate. I always thought real estate was like a game for rich people with money. And even though we were completely adjacent to it, I never thought this was something that we could do. But through education, podcasts, and everything, I realized, I'm like, wait, like we have a lot of knowledge that it's very applicable to real estate. We should do this. And what turned from an idea that we just had of like, hey, it would be cool, it really like hit us on the face in 2021 when we were kind of in the cusp of getting started with real estate. My dad gets COVID. He's hospitalized for 4 months, and then he passes away. And 2 months later, Josh's dad passes away from cancer. So it was really interesting because that year I feel like everyone wanted us to stop and take a pause and kind of reframe what just had happened to both of us at the same time. And instead we use that as inspiration of like, okay, we're going all into real estate and doing whatever it takes to build this life for ourselves that we want, the future that our parents couldn't have, and the life our parents wanted, and life like just was too short for them. So it gave us even more power to, this is what we want to do. And that's when we relocated from Seattle to Kansas City to go all into real estate.
I mean, I'm sad to hear that. I think I had heard that before, but I didn't remember that or recall that. So I can't say I've been through that, but that's a heavy load to take or bear, let alone not just one parent. Both of you, like Josh has to be there to support you. 2 months later, it's like, holy shit. I mean, I know if I lost my dad, it wouldn't be an easy recovery, I guess. I'm very close with my parents.
I think the deep message that we learned from that experience is that like time isn't guaranteed. And not just your time, but like you can see somebody, Deanna's father, who worked his whole life and was finally reaping the benefits of what he had grown. And he, it's a sudden moment, and Deanna didn't have that time up front to know that was coming. In my experience, I went through 6 years of knowing that my dad was going to eventually get to this point, and we spent so much time trying to plan around him that we kind of put other people to the side. And, it hit so differently for each of us. And it just showed that, like, no matter how you look at it, you have to make time for those people around you. And that became a really strong basis for why we wanted to give ourselves that time and try and make work almost optional. We both loved, like Deanna said, what we were doing with our jobs, what I'm still doing with my job. And so making the flexibility is really what got us driven into going into it further.
Yeah, and I think there's a big difference between people that like maybe either suffer a loss or have any kind of hardship, right? Whether they lose a job or they lose a certain amount of money or they lose their house because of financial reasons. It's positions, you hear about those positions, and as someone who, I guess you could say we all have drive because we're in this business and doing things on top of a job that we all have, right? It's just, there's a difference between someone that can act on it and go, hey, I'm going to make this happen, or someone that goes, man, that would be nice. Yeah. I know it inspires you, but what do you think the outcome is? Like we talking about a little bit, what is the vision and the outcome in the next couple of years for you guys?
I think for us, it's been really clear from the beginning what we want to get out of it. I think we realized the path we were leading in our architecture jobs were incredibly fulfilling from a professional perspective, or at least at the time we thought they were, because that has also changed as we've grown. But there was a huge part of it that was missing. We realized we weren't ever going to afford to have children. If we did, what were the conditions of having children? Because our jobs, in order for us to maintain the status that we had built in our companies, that meant sacrificing everything else. And that included children, family, ourselves, everything. And from the beginning, I think the vision has been clear, like getting to a point where like we can enjoy the life that we have created. We both saw our parents, our dads specifically, work their entire lives, give everything to bring a family up, but at their own sacrifice. They weren't there. They weren't enjoying that family. They were just providing. And we don't want to do that. We want to create a life where like we want our children there. We want to be able, and we were talking about this earlier, of like take a family trip and like, yeah, like I want to be able to have the flexibility. I still have to work and do things, but like my computer is right there. I don't have to go and sit in an office or wait for like those 10 days of vacation a year that I get, or wait for retirement. And hopefully I can afford to have like to enjoy my life now. It became very clear we don't want to wait. We want to have it all, and it's hard, and whatever that means to us, like that's what we're trying to build right now.
Yeah, and I mean I agree with you, and I think that the whole reason for doing this show is to inspire the average person that works a 9 to 5, or some of us that worked 80 hours a week on a job because we love it, to realize that there is more to work or life than just working really hard, especially for someone else, right?
I think the motivation there is that we saw that like we can do the same thing and get the same result, and the fear of staying the same was worse at that point than the fear of trying to change something. And like our worst case scenario is we go back to the jobs that we have, and at least we've tried to do something different, and we've tried to change the course of our life. And it worked in a way that we've continued to push that riskier road while we have the opportunity to.
Yeah, and I think that's great advice for listeners too, is, I'd rather take chances, take a risk, and try and build something for myself. I would regret not trying, because my life, even though I feel like I've still been grinding and working really hard, I couldn't really imagine 5 years ago when I really committed full-time to real estate while having a day job. I've already succeeded in what I thought I could, and now there's like new heights that I'm trying to get to. But it's become more fun. I've met better people. My circle that I'm surrounded by is better, authentic, quality people. And I think by just going for it, people should just realize anyone can go for it. Find some mentors is like a nice shortcut. and sometimes you outgrow those mentors. So, but let's get back into the real estate. So when you decided, hey, both our dads died, super hard time, let's make a life for ourselves. How did you get started with your first real estate project, and what'd you choose?
We ended up doing basically what Bigger Pockets and everyone else tells you to do. Buy your first home, ideally buy a house hack, and be able to scale from there. So that's how we got started. We bought a duplex, we house hacked it, we relocated to Kansas City, and we were living we fixed it ourselves, and like slowly we grew, and like we bought another property and we bought another property, and we were doing, our mindset grew a lot from like, initially we were very risk adverse and we were like long-term rentals only, and then we learned about midterm rentals and then short-term rentals, and all of a sudden we were doing kind of a little bit of everything. But I think the biggest transition period came that everyone in real estate felt like it was the same narrative. It was, I hate my job and I want to quit my job. And Josh and I, really, we loved our professions. We are very passionate about being designers and architects, and designing or like fixing up and putting finishes in a single family home was really not that exciting for us. Like that was...
It was a scale issue.
Yeah, and we were like quitting our jobs, even though we won the freedom out of them. For this, we can't imagine a full life of this. So... And it's funny, we were just talking about this recently, but even though we like, now looking backwards, it makes so much sense of like, what is our unfair advantage? And we always thought, we were like, what is our unfair advantage? So we couldn't see it because it was not related to residential real estate. And then it kind of hit us that we stayed at a Sonder with thinking it was an Airbnb. And we got to experience like
It was actually in San Diego.
We were in San Diego. We stayed at the Sonder downtown. And like the app process and like the check-in, it was in a beautiful space, multifamily. Only the cleaners were walking around. And we were like it kind of dawned on us. I was like, Josh, this is it. Like my multifamily is my bread and butter. This is easy. Like this, I understand. This we can build from the ground up. And this I'm passionate about. Like, what about we going to hotels, boutique hotels? Like, who do we need to talk to and learn everything about boutique hotels? And both of us got really excited because it combined both of our expertise of multifamily, event creating, hospitality, high-end design. And so we just had to put the pieces together and learn who were those people that we needed to learn from to get those pieces. But then that was the future we were willing to work hard for. And so we made a full pivot. We stopped with residential and completely turned into commercial real estate for boutique hotels.
Yeah, and I love that story. And I didn't know that it was in San Diego that you went to a hotel like that. And at least with my research, I've only stayed at a couple of those places where there's really like no check-in or check-out. I think the boutique hotel space, at least the newer automated version with less staff or a more successful property, it's fairly new in the last couple years. I hear stories, and I'm watching other boutique hotel investors that we both know. They're buying the mom and pop property where the property wasn't really making any money. It was the old school way. The manager was getting paid, but there wasn't a lot of profit. So who did you discover like in the field that you needed to choose a mentor, obviously, but who were you looking at? Who were the key players, a couple years ago in hotels?
So yeah, this was 2 years ago. No one was really talking about boutique hotels. Now it's like the thing that everyone's talking about. We were in San Diego for a conference, and when we had that light bulb moment, and I was at the cusp of like being incredibly burnt out at my job. And we just started telling everyone, we're like, boutique hotels. We want to do boutique hotels. So everyone started telling us, oh, you need to talk to this person. You need to talk to this person. And at that conference, we actually met Dave Perret, who's also a common friend of ours. And we established a really good relationship with him. We still are pretty close friends with him. And we were telling him, we want to do boutique hotels. We want to boutique hotels. And in one of those, he was like, we were sitting at a bar, and he's like, I have your guy. Texted Blake Daly and us and said, meet, you have boutique hotels. You want to start a mastermind. They want to learn how to do boutique hotels. Friends. And that was it. And it was at a bar on a Friday night. And like Blake immediately texted me. He's like, absolutely, let's chat tomorrow. And I was like, this is great. Like, and it was just like that, like telling people what you want to do and then figuring out, they know, you don't know who they know. Someone out there may know the person that you need, your who, to get to that point. And that was Blake Daly for us. He was starting a mastermind. We joked that we were the OGs of his mastermind because he was starting to create all the content for it, but he didn't have it established. And he started mentoring us. We had a hotel under contract in Kansas City, and we had no clue what we were doing. We're like, help. And he would sit with us for hours, teaching us how to underwrite, how to think about it, how to put the LOIs, like everything. It was, so since then, we've been part of his group.
Yeah, I mean, Blake's a partner. You know, I've known him probably about 2 years now, maybe just less. And I saw Blake on Rich Summers' podcast. And then I knew that Dave was a mutual friend. And I said, get me a Zoom call with Blake Daly. He was just starting under contract with the hotel that we ended up closing on. It took a long time to close. And so I agree, though, on your point. You should just tell people what you want to do. If you're a new real estate investor, if you think you want to flip some homes, start telling people, hey, I want to get into home flipping. Leads and people will start coming your way. You kind of attract, I believe, whatever energy you put out there is what you're going to attract. So I do believe in the law of attraction. And you guys said, we want to do boutique hotels. And by going to conferences, some people don't realize you need to go to conferences. You don't have to go to all of them. Go to conferences that you can meet people, and you can't go to a conference and not really talk to people and not tell you. You have to put yourself out there if you want to really succeed in real estate. But so Josh, let's get into so when you guys connected with Blake and you spent a bunch of time with him, what was your first impression of him?
Oh, man.
Overall? I mean, I'm curious.
He was so tremendously generous about not just his energy, his time. He was available to always guide us he was really helpful in the underwriting components of what we were doing. We always knew that for us, value add was going to be a big thing based on all of the time we had spent in all of the things leading up to the hotel, but we didn't know anything at the time about really operations. Blake gave us a lot of info into that side of the business, shared a lot of documents with us that, he's brought into his mastermind now that help you know how to run these facilities too, because the best way to get your value at a commercial scale is to be able to sometimes control the operation side of it within the business too. And he just had an energy. I mean, I know from when he was closing Tremont, and you know as well, how stressful those last few hours were. And despite all of that, we were going through, it was actually our second time being under contract, and our earnest money was about to go hard on a deal. And he spent time with us looking at the numbers again to check on things, to make sure. And we were like, Blake, you do not have to do this right now. He's like, I need to look at something else for a minute because my head's going to explode if I just think about Tremont right now. And it was just funny, but at the same time, it shows how dedicated he is to his people as well.
Yeah, and I think, I met Blake. I got connected through Dave because I said, hey, I'm moving into the commercial real estate space. I had already owned a commercial building in Iowa. That was a 12-month flip. It went pretty good, but I wanted experts. And I, the same, had some STRs, kind of got annoyed by him because there were a lot of work. And I'm like, how do you scale this? I want to be in commercial, right? Not doing one house at a time, right? That's why I said, hey, I just want to call with Blake. And I heard about this Tremont Lodge that he had under contract. He needed help raising money, but he was the expert operator. I didn't want to operate. I had a bunch of cash and I had investors asking me where we should invest next. And so you're right. I had a Zoom call with Blake and Dave. And I think he had probably 3 or 4 hotels when you guys met him, which is about the same time I did. Tremont obviously is a much bigger hotel than just a small boutique. That one's 130 units. For listeners that don't know, I'm a big partner in Tremont Resort and Lodge in the Smoky Mountains of Tennessee. And I'm a large partner. I brought a bunch of investors. I bring business advice. Blake Daly is the operations. There are multiple employees. I personally didn't want his job. So he gets paid. He moved to Tremont area with his wife and now new baby. It is a lot of work operating the hotel. And there's so many aspects of the commercial space. But I agree. And it's great to hear because I did multiple interviews with Blake before I put a bunch of money in with him. And I've put money in with other deals, and the partners don't do what they're going to say. I mean, I'm closing on a mobile home park today. I can't wait to get out of it. I don't like the space anymore. And there's so much content out there nowadays for hotels, but they are new. But for mobile home parks or flipping or any of those, you can do anything in real estate, but you really want to envision what you want your life to look like. Mine is low operations. I did flips, and the contractor calls you 40 times a day asking, hey, are these the right tiles for the right bathroom? They're in the notes. So, but I totally agree. I love Blake. I think he means well. It's really cool to see him teaching people, and not just teaching people for money, right? He dedicates his time to actually care. I think it's hard to find people out there. A lot of people are selling programs, coaching courses, this and that. Some are good. Some are just a transactional value. And I think you have to choose the right one to grow. And at some point, like I just joined one we talked about earlier, I just joined my first one after looking and trying to figure out what angle or what direction I wanted to go. And now that I've chosen strictly industrial development for what I'm doing, which again, I think it's on the front running, kind of like boutique hotel was and still is. It's the new hot thing. So I'm trying to get more involved in small bay industrial before the whole market comes in the next 2 to 3 years. But choosing the right mastermind like Blake's, it really makes a difference if the key player or the instructor there puts their heart and soul into it, And I also think you could relay that to operating a hotel. You guys closed on the Palm Springs Hotel, in the fall?
It was in June.
June. Okay, so
last June.
Time goes quick, doesn't it? So you guys close, you raise money. You when you raise money, people have to trust you. They invest with you as an operator just as much as the actual product, right? I think you guys chose a great market of Palm Springs. I mean, I loved your guys' deck, and I think I had like 3 things going on. I closed on my project in August, so I'm like, I want to do a deal with you guys, but I don't have any money left, So let's get into that. So let's talk about, it sounds like Blake was involved in helping underwrite for your resort in Palm Springs.
Yeah, he was pivotal in the entire time that we've been wanting to do boutique hotels from the beginning, from learning. We kind of had a strategy of what properties we wanted to go for. We were looking at, when we were in Kansas City, our strategy was, because we're architects, because we understand zoning, building codes, we understand what can be done, we understand the constraints and how to bring those properties, undervalued properties, to the next level. In Kansas City, our strategy was to buy office buildings. No one was buying office buildings, and we were buying, and typically office buildings are in really good locations. So locations, everything for a boutique hotel. So at the time we were looking for boutique hotels, office buildings that we can transform into boutique hotels. Blake would help us with the strategy of how to underwrite it, how to get it under contract for the right price, the right terms, the right everything, how to raise the capital, the decks, everything, how to create a business plan to sell to a bank of, this is what we're going to do, and this is why we're capable of doing this with our background. Like, that really helped as well. So he was part of, like, from beginning to end, from the whole thing. And even today, he still supports us in our current hotel. But we went through that process 3 times. 2 of them we walked away. Just at the end of the day, the project no longer fit our buy box, or we found things out during due diligence that just wasn't what we were looking for when we got into it. And we're very respectful of the people who are believing in us and what we can achieve. In the second that we start feeling like we can't achieve that any longer because the deal is not what we thought it was, we've decided to walk away from those opportunities. Better not to do a bad deal than to do a deal.
Yeah.
But yeah, we got Palm Springs. Palm Springs was a known market for us. We had some friends who had another boutique hotel in the market. We partnered with 2 other real estate investors. They come from a completely different background from, like, our expertise. Their background is in commercial brokerage, investing out of state. And we really put a team together that brought different expertise. We were talking about that earlier, of like having teammates that really their strength is different than your personal strength, so that you can really rely on each other to build something grand. And yeah, Blake was there from the beginning, helping us and supporting us. And for us, I know a lot of operators handle boutique hotels different. A lot of people looking to get into the space, they want to hire a third-party property management company. For us, and which is why also to your point, like, know who you're learning from. Like, we chose Blake specifically because we knew we wanted to have complete control over the asset. And that meant, no one likes property management, but that meant learning how to manage the property, because the success of the hotel relies on the management. No third-party property management company is going to care about the success of the hotel the way that we will. So Blake, that's what Blake had to offer. He gave us all the blueprints of how he had managed 6 hotels in the past and how he was managing Tremont, and gave us the leg up of like, this is what we need to do. And it gave us so much more confidence that we hired a team. We have 2 general managers, we have virtual assistants, and we have a whole team that's running based on the things that we have learned from Blake's mastermind.
Yeah. And so to that point, I agree, third-party management will never work the asset or care about it as much as you will, because most people pay a salary. And even if you had some benefits per performance, it's not their asset. They don't have ownership. I hear it time and time again, whether it's multifamily, mobile home park management, it doesn't matter. Third-party management does not always work, and they just don't work as well. So I think knowing who your manager or your operator is going to be the key to success. Even if you have all the blueprints, you really need to believe in the person that's going to run the asset for you, no matter what asset space. So, Josh, let's get into, what did you like as a visual concept? Let's talk about the hotel. I believe you said it's 13 rooms, which is truly a boutique hotel. I love that size, especially if you're a first one. It's not a massive one that's just a very stressful undertaking, right? So let's talk about, why did you guys like this product and this asset specifically, and what kind of layout and your visionary with your design aspect? I mean, because that's a different element that most people don't have. People have a hard time seeing the end result. So from an architect or a designer aspect, what made you really be excited about this property?
Well, the buy box and the area was obviously the first thing we looked at, outside of the architecture. But once Deanna and I stepped foot into the building, we both really, the mountain is right in the background. It was an 11-room facility at the time. One of the spaces was a manager's unit that we saw opportunity to basically divide into 2 more spaces to get from 11 to 13 rooms. We wanted to add a component to the space that viewed the mountain to create a better social space for the property that kept the noisier components of operating a hotel away from some of the rooms, but also gave us a really nice venue potentially for weddings and for meetups and for just really hanging out and enjoying the facility. So Deanna and I, and when we say design, it was really in the initial stages of seeing the property. We dialogued with each other and talked about what we thought those potential opportunities were, and we really hit the ground running by starting with the OM and making sure that what we were showing had a lot of that vision in it. We started underwriting very quickly and using all of the due diligence period to essentially share what that vision was, of like moving one of the entrances from where it was previously to align better with this addition that we wanted to add. And because I have experience in construction management, Deanna has a lot of the experience in the front end design and the pro formas, we were able to really put all of our expertise, and then our commercial broker partners, the 4 of us really synergized in a way of getting to a spot where even before we were closing, we had the full vision, at least enough of the vision to really feel confident in the development and in the process of going through the next stage of getting to construction. And it was a 6+ month period of time from when we acquired the property to being done, and we just fast-tracked everything as a result of our unfair advantage in value add and in design.
And it's great. I think you hit on a couple big points that I'd like to break down a little bit.
Sure.
The transition from residential real estate to commercial, what I have found is that you really need a team, because there's a lot more, number one, there's a lot more money that can be made in commercial. There's scalability, but there's way more elements. How a product or how an asset sells is not a comp of necessarily your neighbor's house. That's based on what the houses sell for. In my opinion, you don't really control residential cost or the price of the value of the home. Yes, you can add a kitchen and a bathroom and redo it, and you can increase that, but it's really affected based on the value of whatever's selling. Commercial property, it's valued on the NOI, the net operating income per year. Then when they sell, it's what's the cap rate that they sell at. For me, that was a big learning curve. I'm like, wait, can you remind me again what a cap rate is and what that means and what's it's off of, right? So when you're talking about building a team, it sounds like you guys fit great, even as your, design and underwriting and front end skills. It's like a perfect little architecture partnership, which is great, right? You guys aren't both battling over the same thing. But let's talk about how you picked your partners. One's a commercial broker, so they're probably also adding a big value in underwriting and looking at the other hotels, and then going from 11 to 13 unit rooms. That's big on the NOI. So let's break that down a little bit. What chose you to pick like your commercial broker partner and then your other partner as well?
So the two of them were commercial brokers, are commercial brokers, really strong in marketing, really strong in visioning in a different sort of way as well. But also very technically savvy in the sense of numbers and being able to bring in a whole nother pool of relationships that they've cultivated and people that they can, help support the process. And the synergy allowed, it really was a perfect match of just ambition and just drive to be able to get us all, we all could touch what each other was kind of working on, but nobody was really so on top of the other that like we were stepping on each other's toes, like you were saying. So it allowed us to take a vision, I think, from just like what was in our heads, what we were visualizing, and really drive that forward. So and maybe you can speak a little bit more specifically if I've missed on anything there, but this might be one of the questions where we want to overlap a little bit.
Yeah, it's great. It's great because it's your input and your take on, hey, it's great that these two commercial brokers are also really good at marketing and the vision and everything else, but they bring a large element to experience you guys didn't have on maybe valuing a commercial property. I didn't have that when I switched over. I tried to bring in some mentors and YouTube education and things. You can learn a lot, but every partner needs to bring a little different element. And even you guys do, as a married couple, you guys do have that. So what's your take on selecting your partners, but as well as what else should people, like a listener here, how should they select necessarily a good partner?
Yeah, I think a lot of people maybe get caught up on like, who's my friend, or like who is the most convenient. And I don't think that that's the right way to get up into a partnership. I mean, if you think about, especially in commercial, like you really are getting married to these people. Like we are married to our partners for the next 7 years. Mm-hmm. Like that is a giant commitment of like the people that you want to be working with. More so even like than their expertise and what they bring is also like, who are they as people? Like what is their work ethic? What are their ambitions? Like that is something that we really looked at them, and we knew we were at the same level to create something so unique and so exciting, because we were all pushing each other in different ways. They pushing how to raise the standard. We all knew we didn't want to go after like the motel mom and pop type of model. We wanted to create a model that didn't exist in Palm Springs. We analyzed the market and we saw, okay, it's a lot of people say, why would you ever invest in Palm Springs? And I love talking about that, because it's like, why wouldn't you? Like, for us, it was the perfect avatar, the people that we want to serve, the people that we want to create a space for. The market itself brings millions of people, 14 million people a year come into the Coachella Valley. Like, it is a small valley. Like, it is a lot of people coming in. If you position yourself and you do it well, there is a market for you. If you just are scared and kind of cut yourself short and you stay in the middle of the road, those are the people that get stuck and that are not going to succeed because you're not differentiating yourself to your competition. And I think our partnerships with like our partners, like we really push of like creating a brand that didn't exist. The luxury wellness was not a thing that existed. And that's when like the marketing and the branding really came super strong to create a unique product. And especially like the timing of it too. Josh spoke about the speed of construction, but even the speed of closing for us. We got under contract in April and we closed in June, raised over $2 million in that period in 60 days. Plus, in order, like we all benefit, like we all did the best we could and improved the product at the end. Our partners were also had a lot more connections, had done a lot more deals than us. They could bring the majority of the capital raising. And that allowed us to focus on the design, the vision, the construction, budgeting, hiring the contractor, permitting process. We submitted permits before we closed. That cut 2 months out of our construction period. We didn't close the hotel and then waited for permits to come and then be wasting money. We submitted permits. We closed. 2 weeks later, we were in demo. Like we hit the ground running immediately, and it was because of the strong partnership. They could focus on the thing that they're best at and allow us to focus on what we do best, which is the visioning, the construction, the architecture.
Yeah. And it sounds like you guys have a great 4-person partnership as far as the GPs. I mean, that's quick to raise $2 million no matter what the asset class is. And it's also quick to submit permits if you're only going under contract in April. I try and do the same on my projects. And we like pay before we close. Once we know we have enough money to close, we pay the engineer to get going. And the investor, that's my money out of my account, not the investor's money. So there's no risk for the investors if something happens and we don't close for whatever weird reason. But I'm comfortable because I do all my due diligence prior. So, but it sounds like you guys have a great 4-person partnership. And I know just from following, I followed your project along very closely, and I've watched, and when you go into a hotel to do a big renovation like you guys did, you shut down. There is no income coming in. So you have to budget for that, and you have to stay on top of your contractors. So I believe you guys moved to the area, and were you guys on site most days hammering on the contractors?
Every day.
Deanna I was still juggling, going back and forth between my my W-2.
Yeah, we have, and we were talking about this earlier, that the second we left Seattle in 2021, whenever that was, we really have put the hat of like doing whatever it takes. And we moved to Kansas City. We lived there for a few years in suitcases. We moved to New Jersey, went back. We were going to move to Estes Park when we had that project under contract. And we moved to Palm Springs because we were completely invested in making this the best thing it could be. And we knew that in order to do that, we had to focus on that project. I quit my job right before we got under contract. And that was the only thing I did for the last year, was doing permits, the whole design, managing the contractor, being on site every single day, handling construction issues, ordering everything you can think of. And then on top of it, creating the operations, like starting like by the late fall, we started with the operations, hiring the team, creating the SOPs, creating the system so that we could hit the ground running in January when we wanted to open for the high season. So it was a full day, like a 24/7 operation to get it done, but that's what we were willing to do. We knew that we couldn't miss the high season, so we were willing to do whatever it took to succeed.
And it sounds like a great time to quit your job, but also I think a lot of people don't understand the amount of effort it takes to be a general partner leading an investment or a development or a remodel that's really large like your guys. We put a lot of time and effort on the table. Oftentimes, we don't get paid for multiple years. So investors come to us and they really invest with us. Like we were talking about before, not necessarily the product. They have to like the product. They have to like the market. And us as general partners, you have to put together an offering that also makes sense for their return on money versus risk. But really, I'm just like you, 24/7, my investors' money comes first. All of us partners have money in our deals too. But I really want to reiterate to people and let listeners know, like, people like us, we have skills. We may have day jobs to pay the mortgages and the other things, but we are blood, sweat, and tears into real estate. And it makes us different, I think. We're not driving these fancy cars. I'm not showcasing vacations, even though I go on them. Those are for me and the family, right? And there's something to be said about different groups that either, really work hard to make the best asset because they care about people, or if it's just money. And I think for both of us, it's about both. The asset needs to perform well, but what makes me different, I feel like, I actually care about making money for people. I've actually lost on deals before I started going with a bigger company, and I paid out those investors. I didn't have to. Legally, I didn't have to. I said, no, this is the right thing. I convinced them to come in, and I took a massive hit, and I'm okay with that. And guess what? They reinvest with me now. Now it's all legal docs and attorneys and everything, and it's, hey, if we lose your money, like, you're out. That's never going to happen because I won't do a deal like that ever again. So let's get into a little bit. Let's talk specifically about the hotel. So it's a 13-unit boutique hotel in Palm Springs. I personally can't wait to come. I tried to come during Thanksgiving and it just, with the family and the kids and but I can't wait to come and shoot content and show people what it is, because I think it's very unique. We talked about really luxury wellness. So let's break it down a little bit. 13 units, and get into some of the features and the design that you guys did is very different than what else is out there.
Yeah, I think one of the first things that we noticed, by the way, this property was on LoopNet. Like,
okay.
we didn't.
Yeah, you should mention.
we didn't do anything that no one else could do. It's not like we had a level up with like a connection that gave us this hotel. Fantastic location in Palm Springs. It had been sitting there for a few months, like on the market. But I think a big part of it was the scale of it. I think was a perfect hotel for us because of our background and like our unfair advantage that we brought to the table. The hotel was 11 rooms, like Josh mentioned, with a very large general manager's room, but there was nothing inspiring about it. If you don't have a vision, like, you would walk in it and you would be like, this is garbage. The previous owner had started doing some renovations to it. He had it shut down for 2 years. So he had already removed all the tile, plumbing. There was no toilets. There was no sinks. There was nothing. And he got caught up in permits, lost a ton of money, decided to put it on the market and sell, but he painted everything white. So, but there was like not even furniture. So
the bones were great though.
Yeah, the bones were great. The location was fantastic. That's all we needed. For a big investor that has experience, that could take on this level of construction, this is a very small hotel. 13 rooms, incredibly small. For a new investor, the number of rooms might make sense, but the level of construction was intimidating. I think for most investors managing such a large construction, it was $1.2 million in construction cost, and especially for the fast construction period. So it was a perfect in between where it was too small for big investors, too big of a project for new investors. Josh and I, we were able to walk in it, see the vision, understand the pain points of the property, how we can make it better, how we can add value, and then hit the ground running immediately to make it happen. So we improved in a lot of like the spaces themselves, understanding the market too. Palm Springs is really well known for mid-century modern. Everyone does mid-century modern. We didn't want to be like everyone else. Why would you choose to stay with us versus the 7 neighbors we have that they're all hotels if we all look the same or we're all offering the same thing? So that was another thing we did. It was a big market study of like, what's there? How can we differentiate ourselves? Wellness came in. That was a really big push also by Solio, our partner, of creating this brand and really focusing on the wellness piece of it. So everything became about that. Each room is we have 13 rooms, 8 different room typologies, where different offerings. They all have similar vibes, but different offerings. Most of our rooms had very large backyards, so we started thinking about like different amenities that we can offer. We have fire pits, we have private cold plunges, we bought these concrete exterior tubs, so you can choose a room with a soaking tub that's made out of concrete that sits outside. People love it to sit and look at the stars at night and drink wine, and you have your private space. We have rooms that are our spa suites, which is what we call them, but they have like indoor, like giant bathrooms. We move a bunch of walls, fix the plumbing, made giant bathrooms. They have interior soaking tubs. And then we have what we call the movement room. So we built a big wood deck. People can exercise, do their morning yoga, whatever they want to do. So we became very specific about our offering. But again, I think also because of our understanding in the industry and like seeing buildings, we immediately started how can we maximize this building as much as possible? We made some rooms bigger. We reduced the size of some other rooms to add amenities. So we built within the same footprint. We built a Himalayan salt sauna, custom made everything. Like, it's beautiful. The cold plunges, the hot tub. We built a massage room as well. So a full bar where we knew we wanted the model with general managers because, again, understanding the market, we knew that there was a premium people are willing to pay to be catered and to have a general manager. The self-run Airbnb model, even though we came in with that idea, we really learned by understanding the model, like, there's a market here where people will pay $800, $1,000, $1,500 a night just to have the general manager sit there. So we're like, okay, we need to make a place for them. So we built an addition, built a bar for the general manager. So we created this whole vision that was not there. And someone coming in, just fixing rooms and adding tile and choosing new furniture, that alone would not have been enough to like get to the level of what we've been able to achieve with Terra.
Yeah, and it sounds like you guys designed it and you invested in the remodel. You chose the right, even like the photos I've seen, tile colors, the exterior tubs, that's attractive to me because it's different. It's not just the normal 13-unit hotel that has a pool out in Palm Springs and that's about it, right? Like you said, now maybe if you built one of those, you're lucky you'll get $300 to $400 a night, maybe. But instead you said, let's take it next level. Let's build saunas, cold plunges, different rooms, not just 13 of the same room, right? And I think that makes a difference. So if someone wants, hey, I want a bigger room with an outdoor cold plunge, that's someone that's looking for that getaway. And I love the Palm Springs market. I would like to own like just a vacation house there for myself. For now, I'll come stay at your hotel. It does attract a lot of people. Some people go from Canada in the winter time there, and you're going to get people that want to relax and work on their wellness and hit the sauna, and maybe they don't want the cold plunge. Maybe they want to heat the concrete tub and look at the stars in the winter. Then in the summer, you're like, well, let's cool the pool down a little bit because it's 120 out, and you're getting people that love the heat but also want to be in the pool or a nice cold shower, things like that. But so because you added all those amenities, I mean, it sounds like you're able to get a higher revenue per room per night, and that really increases your NOI, which is your net operating income per year, but it also increases the value of the hotel exponentially. Yep. I mean, so is that part of your underwriting was, hey, let's invest more money in the remodel and let's pick higher end finishes and get a higher return? Was that part of the underwriting? It's
funny because in terms of the construction, again, we went so fast. We built a super detailed scope of work that we gave to all these contractors. They gave us a quote. We built a lot of buffer and a lot of contingency in our construction cost. But for our revenue portion, we underwrote it as if we were a middle of the road hotel, $270 ADR at 70% occupancy, which is the market average. So the two didn't fit each other.
Intentionally,
because we're incredibly conservative, and especially with hotels. Like, it's our first hotel. Our biggest intent was we want to create a masterpiece of build our brand, showcase what we're able to do, and show investors this is who we are. This is what we're capable. There's plenty to come. We cared more on this one to get it right than and if that meant being incredibly conservative, then that's what we did. So we underwrote the hotel super conservative. We didn't include, even though we were designing it and it was part of the construction cost, we didn't include any revenue generated by those added amenities. So no added revenue for being able to charge higher for the rooms, no added revenue for massages, no F&B. So we kept, because also it was our first hotel with all these components that we didn't truly understand. How do you understand how to budget for that? How much money can you make each month? We were like, you know what? Zero. No expenses, no income. Let's just pretend it's not even there, because the part that we know and understand the most and can control is the room rates. So let's just run and sell a hotel to our investors just with room rates. And if that gives us the returns we want, then that's a hotel that we want to do. But there was all this added potential that we knew we were building towards, but that we didn't want to rely on. So at the end of the day, like right now, we've been operating for 4 months, still in our stabilization period. We have a 6-month stabilization period that we're estimating to really get our name out there, to get our occupancy to the levels that we want to be. But we're running our ADR at 450. And
so ADR is average daily rate for listeners that don't know. And that's what's great and attractive about a hotel compared to maybe just a rental unit, a house unit, right? Where you're like, hey, we charge $2,000 a month for the lease. You can't really restructure those. It's like every 12 months you can do a rental increase. At a hotel, it's every day based on the market. So I know there's some apps and stuff, but when you underwrite a hotel, it's average daily rate, and then you figure out an occupancy that works. I mean, you as an investor get to pick what you think that occupancy is. That's where a lot of the data research comes from. I don't think people realize to have a successful investment, it is so much market research. It is not as simple as we think these numbers are going to work.
Absolutely.
Good investors analyze and go, here's where I got my data. And we went more conservative, but here's a bunch of the upside. We just don't know how much, but we will tell you there is upside. But we don't commit that to investors. I do the same thing. My developer and my team will come to me and go, here are the numbers on the development. And there is a contingency of 5% is what we use. The banks love 5%, so we use the 5%. Sometimes we use it and sometimes we don't. If you have any construction overruns, that's what your contingency is for, right? But I think a lot of people, I see people out there that throw a pitch deck out there and it's a best case scenario because they really want to get the deal done. I think, as we both know, you're always going to run into some type of issue. And it might not just be financially. It could just be a delay on permits. But that could financially, if you're owning a hotel and you have a loan on it and you're in the middle of a remodel, people can't rent the rooms. That's a financial burden right there. You might not be on a cost overrun for your project, but you're losing money on the table.
100%.
Yeah, nothing terrifies me more than over-promising in that initial stage. And I think going back to even what you were saying before about, in deals where you've even paid out investors where it didn't work out, like building that trust with people it's worth every bit of the extra, that comes out of either underselling a deal or going back out of your own pocket to bring something back to someone else.
Yeah, and it's to make it right. I'm not going to be able to do that on every deal, but it's as I was trying new deals and brought in family and friends on the deals, I felt it was my obligation to go like, hold on, this was a riskier deal. I thought it was secured. I screwed it up. Really, somebody borrowed a lot of money from me and screwed me, and then it just didn't work out, right? Even with legal docs, and I'm second on title and all this stuff, I thought I knew what I was doing. I lost, and I paid it out to make it right. And you can't always do that, but you're right in the fact where I didn't even have to think about it. It was like, nope, I'm just going to have to sell 2 assets, make it right, and start over and never do a risky deal again. So I never loaning somebody money like that again in a second position. And for me, I'm like, you can't trust everybody, but I can trust the deals that I'm involved in because I will work 24/7 to make that deal work. So it's a big difference in character from some people that just want to make money doing this business, or do you want to build a brand and a company that people are attracted to? Or if I can just educate people and they change their life, I'm good with that too. I just want to inspire people like, hey, you could be a private jet pilot. It's a cool gig. Or if you want more out of life, you should invest your money, whether it's with me or they do it themselves, and then just change your life. Like, I want to be home with my kids or on vacation, as we talked about, but I like working. But in real estate, you can work from anywhere for the most part. You may have to be on site for some construction. Like, I will be more for content and just kind of making sure my builder is doing a good job. But I find in commercial real estate, you get better people overall, better attorneys, better brokers, right? You're dealing with bigger numbers and you're dealing with better professionals. So what do you guys think? I can't wait to come see the hotel. But what do you guys think is your next step now that you're almost stable in that hotel? Sounds like you're kind of on past the hard workload. And I've seen so much good marketing. So congrats on a lot of the articles coming out. I mean, that is a really good job too. And I know how hard that is. But your marketing is great. So what is your guys' next step?
I think right now that is the point where we're kind of figuring out. We were talking about the last 3-4 years for us have been like an all-in mentality. So I think part of what we want to do is kind of look back of like how much we've done, but also we've started because of different reasons. We've started like a design consultation, a management company, and the hotel side. So at this moment, we're like kind of taking a step back and like figuring out like what is the next path for us that we want to do. Hotels is definitely the passion project where we want to spend all of our time and really build a brand, because we really believe in what we can achieve, like the value that we can bring. But there's other aspects that we love about real estate. We love working with other investors themselves and bringing value, helping them bring their vision to life. Like we're working on Tremont on the design of that hotel. And that is an aspect that like we want to be able to still do. So right now we're in that phase of like restructuring kind of like the different venues of businesses that we have created. Which ones are some that we need to like one more notch to get them to really work on their own. And I think that's the management company it's almost there to where we can scale it sustainably without us having to be on, like that can become our 5-10% of our time and really focus our genius in the aspects that bring us passion, which is the hotels, building that brand. So right now we're speaking with our partners as well of like, we have one under our belt as a partnership. How did it go? We're very, and I think that's part of the success of our partnership. We really talk to each other in very honest conversations about where are you going? Where do you want to go? Where do I want to go? What do we envision our daily lives to look like? And we're crafting that vision together to make sure we want to have kids. We've been nomadic for 3 years. We don't want to continue doing that. So right now we're in the process of crafting that vision of what does that brand look like and how do we continue scaling this, because I think it's clear from our team that we loved what we did with Terra. It was an incredible product. We built it out of nowhere and we want more of that, but we want to be very intentional with what that looks like and what that brand looks like, rather than just buying hotels all over the place and trying to make the brand fit the mold, but doing it the other way of like understanding the brand so well that we're very specific about which hotels we're buying because the hotel fits the brand. So we're in the process of defining that next path.
And I think it's really good advice for people or as a group to sit back and go, what went well, what didn't? That's what I'm starting to implement in our deals. Because as you know, as you're raising money and there's a lot going on in design and engineering and development from raw land is what we're doing now. Like some of us are stepping on each other's toes, which to me it's difficult, but it's like, okay, but we're going to talk about this after we close. Like 3 of us don't need to call the builder yesterday when I said I was going to call it. Even though we all have our own roles, we're all trying to get it done, which is fine. But it's like, hey, let's revisit after we close. And it's good because the partners are on board with, we need to analyze and like, I'm going to probably remove myself more, even though I'm the alpha male and I'm the CEO. It's like, I like knowing, but just send, let's have an email or a group one. Sometimes we have them and sometimes we don't. So I think it's really smart. And also for people to realize not all partnerships are for life. It may be an asset that goes well. And then it's like, we don't really want a bigger asset. We want more of these smaller ones. So I think for listeners, like you aren't committed to your partners forever. for that deal you are, but you really got to make sure you're aligned. Because I'll tell you firsthand, I've had many partnerships where, hey, the meeting is great and the sounded like the vision, or I wasn't clear on my vision and they sold me because they knew a little bit more, and then the partnership doesn't work out. Whether they don't do what they say or I'm doing too much work. And I think communication is key. Like there are days when you're an investor and I'm working harder than everybody else. And then there's days where the team is working way harder than me. And so I think having a balance in communication of saying, hey, I'm working real hard. Somebody's got to pick up the slack, and having your roles and duties is a big deal. And a lot of people get it wrong, I think.
Yeah. And I think people are willing to just partner with whoever. And they might at the time say what they think the other person wants to hear, but it's not truly aligned with who they are, the roles they want to have, the future they want to have. And I think that we've had really good partnerships and we've had really bad partnerships. And I think that starts to create a lot of tension. And so I think I think for us being able to even take a step back, it was an incredibly challenging project. We were all in Palm Springs. There are times that we got over on each other's nerves, and we're obviously like a marriage, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, but you got to put the effort into it. Just the same as a marriage, you want to make it work. Sometimes you fight and then you have to come back around and be like, okay, let's talk about it. How do we fix that? And how do we not make it happen again? And like you said, it doesn't have to be just because you did one deal, it doesn't have to be that every deal is with that person, but you do have to, for the same success of that business, because again, we're not buying real estate anymore. We're buying businesses. It has to operate. You have to come together to terms and work together for the success and for your own investors that you brought into the deal. So you have to figure out a way how to work together. And I think taking those moments to step back and reanalyze what worked, what didn't. Hey, I didn't like that, or let's figure out a better structure. The structure is not working for me. Now that I got a taste of that, I don't like doing that. Can we figure out a different solution? I think all of those are very valid conversations that will make your partnership better, whether it's just for one deal or for more.
Yeah, and I think we just learn that as you continue business, right? I mean, I'm still learning new things. 2 weeks ago, hired a business coach, and it's hey, my vision is clear. Now, can you please help me get there? Instead of me stumbling and going slower, I believe paying a coach like you're in Blake's mastermind gets you there quicker. But I think it's really good to reflect. And sometimes as a multitasker, as a business person, it's you think you can do it all and you're just kind of everywhere, and it's hard, right? So you have to reflect and go, okay, what am I really good at? I want to focus on this and do this better and more. Right? And delegate and trust partners or employees or whoever you have, VAs, to really do the job. And you got to hold them to a standard. And if they don't meet that standard, it's time to replace them.
And I would just add to some of the kind of uncertainty to where we take our next steps by understanding what our core strengths are, what our truest identity really is in terms of for us, it's value add. It's having now good systems of organized, understanding hospitality. It's understanding property management now. That could take us in different directions if it needs to. And keeping I like to call it maybe a blow off valve, a pressure check, where if something builds up in one way, we know that there are other potential ways we can still utilize those core values.
Yeah, those are all big strengths that are associated with what you're doing, which I think is huge. Too many people don't stay in one lane, but at least you're in one lane that's a little wider. An RV can fit in it instead of a little Prius, but that's okay. You're still on the same path. But I think people should do what they really enjoy instead of building a business that they're not going to like. I know people that are very successful. They have all this money and they don't like their business. I don't want to be that person, right? But it's been so fun getting to know you guys today. Let's close it out. I always like to ask my guests, we all read a lot of books. I think that stems from growth and in building businesses and wanting more. So what are each of you, if you could just share maybe 2 of your favorite books overall, can be anything that have either helped you in business or growth mindset or anything that you think the readers would really help?
To me, it's super clear. I don't even know how many books I've read. Love reading. But there's one book that I keep going back to, and I was mentioning to you earlier, 10X is easier than 2X. I read that book before it came out, actually. And I've read it probably 4 times now. And it's a book that I want to continue reading every year, like at least once, because it just reframes at whatever stage of your business you're at. Like he talks about the 80% versus your 20%, and there are phases where your 80% should be your 20. And that is a constant evolution. And I think that's something we're constantly looking at what we're doing or our next step.
It's always applicable too.
Yeah. And thinking like, is this 2X or is this 10X? And using that as a framework to make decisions has been like incredible in our journey. And I would say my second one, same author, Who Not How. I think that one, in every step, you don't need to know it all. You don't need to, what we were just saying, like, but who? Then who? Find that partnership. That I'm not a big branding, marketing, even though I appreciate it and I have a lot of respect for it, and I want it to be tied to the architecture. That's not my strength. So we have a partner that is her passion, and that she loves that and she breathes that and she wants to do that. You take it. Go all you and be the best you can be at that, and I can be the best I can be at mine. And those partnerships is what makes the best, I think, to me, like takes you to the next point.
Yeah, is that Gene Sullivan? Is that the author?
Yeah, and Daniel Sullivan and Dr. Benjamin Hardy.
Okay, great. Because both those books are on my list. I believe I downloaded one and haven't got there. I have a lot of books to read on my desk as time allows, but those are great recommendations. And what do you got, Josh? What do you think are 2 really good books that changed, your opinion or helped you out?
I agree with the ones that Deanna said. I really like The Go-Giver as a mindset book. It's like anecdotal, but the stories of generosity and I think adding more than you take in every facet of your mentality goes a really long way to putting you in the rooms with the right people, to making sure that hard work aligns with fortune and luck, because we've said it a lot, is that hard work and luck are very tied together. And I think that people gravitate toward people who add more than they take. So for me, that's a really good book. And then anything Goggins, I would say also, in a very different sort of way, but like, I think I resonate with him. I love his stories. My dad was an ultra marathoner, and sometimes it was hard for me to understand why the hell anyone would do some of that stuff. So now that my dad's not a person I can really ask those questions to, especially as I get older and I think about more of those like toughness and like resistance, and not resistance, but resilience, mindset modes. I hear what he says and I think about how that relates to some of the stories that I grew up hearing from my dad, and just the toughness that it takes to get through some of these things, and the like physical pain is, it's not, in the grand scheme of things, it goes away as quickly as it's there. Mm-hmm. And the toughness that you gain from those things is really moving.
I think it's cool that you found an author, and I agree his stuff is very inspiring. Some of it's like wild to me. I'm not going to go run an ultra marathon, but he is right.
Yeah.
Even if it's related to commercial real estate or real estate, it's some of those pain points, hey, it's only temporary, but let's work through it and you can get past it. And on the other side will be some satisfactory outcome, whether it's a triathlon or an ultra marathon or just a real estate deal like I have right now trying to close, hopefully as we speak. That's a pain point. It's been a pain point in my life. It's temporary. And as soon as I close, it's gone. And you take what you learn from it, and I'm resilient to finishing it. And now I'm taking skills on to the next project, right? And
it gives you a sense of perspective too, that you take into every future thing you do. It's a learning experience. It's a confidence builder, and it's I can tackle whatever comes my way kind of mentality.
Yeah, like whatever I think it's great. I think everyone should focus on their mindset at some point. For me, people are like, "Oh, so how did you do it?" I'm like, it's a continuous learning, experience by reading books, listening to podcasts. Some of it's YouTube, there's some educational good stuff on there, but I think mindset really is everything in life. Even if you have a positive outlook, you attract better people, You attract experience. People want to be around you. That leads to anything you want in life, I think. And if you're a closed mindset and negative and this and that, you're probably going to have a lot more negative action. You're not going to be open to experiences, and you're not really going to change your life much. That's what I have found. So let's close out. Let's make sure listeners know where to find you. I mean, we met on Instagram. So where's the best place to, maybe how about the hotel website link, and where else should they find you on Instagram to connect with you guys if they're interested in, architecture and getting projects done? Because I can't wait to use you guys for my ADUs and my home builds and hopefully my backyard. I want a really cool custom backyard, but I'm going to delay it a couple years and get the real estate, keep pumping it out. So where can they find you?
Absolutely. So the name of the hotel is Terra Palm Springs, and the website is terrapalmsprings.com. We are most active on Instagram, so if anyone wants to pick our brain or just chat or say hi, it's at D.I.FI, Design Invest FI. And yeah, I think those are the best places. We do have our website where we talk a lot about who we are, and we try to keep updated people of the projects, newsletters. We try to share a lot of the resources that we've created that have been helpful for our process. So that's designinvestfi.com.
Perfect. We'll throw those in the show link. And again, thanks for spending the time and staying in San Diego an extra day after your conference. I'm so glad we could connect, and I can't wait to come to the hotel. I'm excited to see it.
Thank you so much, Curt.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening to the show. Hope you guys learned some stuff about boutique hotels. Go to their website, book a night in their hotel, and I cannot wait to go visit. So we'll see you guys on the next show.